with you deeply, some of the things he will do is that he will open to you the realities of his realm. And so you can be singing a song, and after a while, you will discover the energy of that realm will change. And that song will become a vehicle. It will transport you beyond your ecosystem to another civilization. And as you are singing that song, you will come to a point where God will begin to open you up to his oracles. Because the visible realm we see was created from the invisible realm. You know, we have been trapped in time. And so many things can manipulate our emotion and our understanding. And today people worship science. Meanwhile, as advanced as science is, science have not produced anything that breathes. Not even a blade of grass. All science is doing since its advancement is just to discover and to reform. I'm a scientist, so I can speak with authority. I'm a scientist. Praise God. And so the realm we are living in, it came out of another realm. This realm is an offspring of another realm. And so when you begin to walk with God, what he does is that he connects you to that realm, and you will discover that the realities that flow through you are bigger than the things you can trap. And so you may come up and suddenly tap into an inspiration. And then you come to a place, anything you see, you can make meaning out of it that the normal man cannot. Not because you read a book, but because a spirit is whispering to your ears. You can sit in your room and then wisdom comes to you. The challenges that holds millions of people in captivity, you will look at it and it will not be a challenge. It will become an opportunity. Meanwhile, you need to ask yourself, why is it that out of 4 million people, you are the only person who is able to see beyond the problem and see a solution? It's not because you are so smart. It's because there's a spirit that brings inspiration into your soul. And so these are the kinds of things that God interjects into this realm from time to time in order to give us a strategic advantage. And so when we come to worship like this, what we are trying to do is we are not waiting for God to reach us. We are trying to enter his realm. Because we have come to understand that our advantage here is based on what we can receive from that realm. Thank God for the books we have read, but we know that inspiration is stronger than a textbook. And if inspiration does not come, you will gather information, and that information itself will become a burden. That's why sometimes you see professors, they don't comb their hair anymore, because the knowledge has become a burden. They will put their biro on their beards. But when inspiration comes, knowledge becomes power. Because you can be a comedian and you will control presidents. Meanwhile, somebody else who studied abstract physics may not be able to achieve what you achieve in 1 year. The reason is because there's a difference beyond fact and inspiration. Inspiration comes from another realm. And so when we begin to worship, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to study the realm of God and find out the things that operate from that realm. And the first thing you will discover from that realm is a king that sits eternal and desires to be worshipped. If you don't find that king, your life will not have a reference. In Exodus chapter 3 verse 14, Moses was frustrated in Egypt because he saw that the Israelites were marginalized, and he didn't find any justification to the evil that was happening to the Israelites. And so he decided to use his strength and killed an Egyptian. He thought he would kill all the Egyptians. Even if he kills the Egyptians, Israel will not be free. Because Egypt is not just an environment. Egypt had entered their heart. Egypt was in their heart. And so what God was interested in was not to kill the Egyptian. It was to show his excellency. And so when Moses killed an Egyptian and the anger of Pharaoh was released, Moses ran for his life. Because he now discovered that Pharaoh was a god operating by the power of a Leviathan. And when Moses ran to the wilderness, it took 40 years before God encountered him. And so in Exodus chapter 3 verse 14, when God spoke to him, Moses said, when I go, who will I tell them sent me? He said, tell them, I am that I am have sent you. Now, you will never understand that because science can't capture it. Because what I am that I am means is that whatever you call me, I become. That means I am too big to be trapped. You can't trap me to a book. You can't give me a name. So whatever you call me, I become. And so if you are walking in sickness and what you need is health, The moment you call, I am that I am that I am becomes divine health. And then you come out of sickness. And then somebody else is going through poverty. And then he doesn't know what to do. And he calls on I am that I am. And suddenly, an I that I am become a wisdom that produces wealth. And then somebody else is going through crisis and limitations. And he doesn't know what to do. And he calls on I am that I am. Now, if you are in isolation calling on him, you may think you have found him. And so you who found him in the place of sickness, you will meet the one who found him in poverty. And you will discover you are calling on the same being. But that same being means a million things. You will now discover that, oh, there is a being that dwells in Zion. And he's the reference of all reality. Because while we are in this auditorium, God means over 100 things to 100 people. Meanwhile, it's the same person we are calling upon. Because he is I am that I am. Reality dwells in him. And it doesn't stop there, because the operation of I am is not just to meet your need. What it actually means is that he is before time. That means time is in him. So you can't find a reference outside of him. Even what you call a reference is still a place on his inside, because there is something bigger than time. And when he wanted to show his excellency, I'm trying to tell us why we worship him. When he wanted to show his excellency, he carried Moses in the spirit. And Moses stood in the spirit and he looked and he said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The question that Moses himself could not answer is, what was before the beginning? And before the heavens and the earth was created, where was he? It means there is something bigger than space, and there's something bigger than time. The reason you are able to have time is because God exists. The reason you are able to have space is because God exists. Now, if you discover this, you will now come out of your Range Rover and put it one side and say, Abba, Father. Because both you and your car and your house, you are inside God. If you wake up, you may think that you are smart. That's why you are succeeding. You will now discover that everything that comes out of you is still inside God. You will now say, I got a connection with this person. I got a connection with that person. All the people you got connected with are inside God. And so when you become wise, you will now discover he is the reference. Because he's the reference, the only thing you can do is to worship. Because you may wake up and say, I give 1 million. Both you and the 1 million is still inside him. Before you gave it, it was inside him. Because he's I am that I am. So the reason we worship him is because he defines our essence. Outside of him, you have no definition. And so when you discover he defines your essence, you will quit defining yourself by where you are. There are many Nigerians, all they want to do is to stand on London Bridge and snap so that their friends will see that they came to London. Because that is what defines them. They feel more important because they came to London. There are many people, what defines them is the car they drive. And so when they come out of that car, they make a show of the car. You need to see what they drive. That is good, but it's mundane. Because there's a realm where they don't need car. In the realm of the I am, they travel by thought. That's why both... I'm trying to humble us. As human beings, we are big in our head. We are big. You drove it, you flew in a first class, and you crossed your leg with a bottle of wine. Because you want your friend to see. Well, it's only your friend that will be moved. Because there are other creatures that will not be moved because you flew in a plane. The reason is because they can carry that plane on their finger. They don't travel by plane. They travel by the whirlwind. Because in the realm where God dwells, you don't need a vehicle to travel. Whatever you think, you come there. Because you are living in the I am. And so when you understand what worship is, you will now discover that worship is bigger than a song. The reason we worship with a song is because there is no way we can communicate the overwhelming excellency of God. And so when we come before him, anything that sounds good, we usher it to him. Because we have come to discover that everything is in him. And he's the one that gives relevance to things. And so on the strength of worship, we stop evaluating ourselves by what we have. We start evaluating ourselves by what he calls us. Because it's what he calls you that is your essence. In case he has not called you anything, it means you are floating like a balloon. Because your meaning is what he calls you. And so you will come to that altar until he defines you. And this will not stop in time. Because even in heaven, when John was carried to heaven, he said he saw the 24 elders. They had a crown and they sat on a throne. but they will never sit on that throne. Because when the glory of God appears, they fall on their faces and they cast their crown. They say, holy. We know we are wearing crowns and sitting on thrones, but this is not what defines us. You are the one that defines us, because you are the meaning of existence. When we worship God, it's a statement to us that outside of God, we are nothing, regardless of what we have and regardless of where we are. This is why worship concerts like this are very important, because it's a reminder that man without God is dust. The system may deceive you, because the system is created in such a way that pride can be weaved into your soul. Vanity can be weaved into your soul. Because what the system does is that it injects lust into you. It injects vanity into you. And a point will come, you will hit your chest and say, me. Oh, when you come to where immortals dwell, you will discover that outside of him you are dust. And the reason you can still breathe is because he is I am. And so in the place of worship, we come before him and we salute his excellency. Oh, Abba Father, I know that I earn £1 million, but you are my Ebenezer. I know that I have everything I need, but you are my help and my stronghold. The day will never come where we put my trust in what I possess, because both me and what I possess is in you. You are the source. When you walk in an advanced civilization like this, it will be quick for you to forget that there is a God that puts breath on your nostrils. When you walk in an advanced civilization like this, it will be quick for you to think that, oh, because you have never had malaria since you were born. Those of us in Africa, from 4 months, we know the meaning of malaria. So it's easy for us to come close to God. But it's possible that you are 30 years old and you've never had malaria. So when they talk to you about sickness, you say, what does it mean? A day will come when this body, you will pull it off. Because it's somebody that put it on you. And when that time comes, you can't struggle. He will pull it off you. And your spirit will come out of you. And you will discover that even though you didn't fall sick, he was still I am. Because what you are wearing, he put it on you. And when that day comes, nobody can fight. The doctors himself will say, he gave up. Because they don't want to share in the blame. That's why when people die, they say he gave up. Meanwhile, all of you were wrestling with life, but they say he gave up. What happened is that you didn't give up, you were summoned. Because when you came here, you were sent. And when your time elapses, you will be summoned. And if you like, be sitting in a Rolls Royce, you will still be summoned. If you like, be in the hospital, you will still be summoned. Because there's an immortal. Oh, he doesn't need your permission. The Bible calls him the sovereign one. He reigns eternal. He sits above the cycles of eternity. Anything he says is law. And you are because he said so. And the day he withdraws that word, you will vanish. That's why people walk today and say, God does not exist. He's too big to respond. He doesn't need to prove himself. That's why when the Bible was written, they didn't take time to justify his existence. They said in the beginning, God. Whether you choose to believe or not, that's your business. He's too big to explain himself. He owns the earth. But when God opens your eyes and you know, the most reasonable thing to do is to worship. So we don't worship God because of what he does. We worship God because of who he is. That's why whether he gives you the money or not, hallowed be thy name. Whether he gives you the healing or not, hallowed be thy name. Because you don't worship him because of what he gives. You have already found out that everything you are is him. The reason you exist is because of him. So he has done too much already for what he does to be the reason for worship. You come to worship him because of his majesty, because of his excellency. So the first reason we worship and praise God is because we have discerned him. We know that we look intelligent, but outside of God, our intelligence will count for nothing. We know we are smart, but outside of him, our intelligence will count for nothing. And so with everything we are doing, we still come to him and say, Abba Father.